And now at 12:30, hundreds of suspects were arrested during a multi-agency human trafficking task force operation. Law enforcement officials held a news conference this morning revealing the victims were targeted.
Women and juvenile victims were safely rescued during the crackdown. KTLA 5's Kimberly Chang live in downtown LA with the details. Kimberly.
High officials said during a news conference earlier this morning that multiple people were rescued, including children. The youngest child, just 13 years old, during this week-long operation, many of whom have been abused and exploited repeatedly. Now take a look at this video. This was during the news conference that just took place. LAPD and the LA County Sheriff's Department took part in.
She said as young as 13 years old. Where are all the protests about this? Where are all the protests about save the youth, no human trafficking? Why is all this energy going for illegal immigrants and not these young, innocent minors and women that are being human trafficked? Where's the outrage now? 13 years old?
This statewide collaborative operation. The LA Regional Human Trafficking Task Force made a number of rescues and arrests during this operation called Operation Reclaim and Rebuild. It's done annually. Now, during the news conference, officials displayed multiple weapons that they say were also recovered during this crackdown. Now, during the week-long effort, dozens of law enforcement and other agencies across the state searched for victims of human trafficking and sex exploitation and rescued them. Sheriff Robert Luna said during this year's operation, statewide, there were a total of 611 arrests. Ooh. This included suspected traffickers. The sheriff said roughly 150 adults and 14 children were rescued statewide. And in LA County specifically, 12 adults and 5 children were rescued.
That's about 170 total, roughly estimated, of victims rescued. Where's this on CNN? Where's this on ABC, CNBC, MSN Now? Why aren't they talking about this? This is huge. That 600 people were arrested. 600. And who knows how long this was going on. This is tremendous work by this task force. And you have to give this task force a huge applause because they are saving lives. They're saving little girls and women lives who are being sex trafficked. This is a great thing. Why isn't this on the news? Why isn't this mainstream media talk?
According to Sheriff Luna, during the operation, they also did parole compliance checks and seized weapons, which they displayed today for the media. And a brothel in the city of Walnut was also targeted.
Detectives from the Los Angeles Regional Human Trafficking Task Force investigated a citizen complaint about a suspected residential brothel in the city of Walnut, leading to months of surveillance and information gathering. A coordinated multi-location search warrant operation involving multiple law enforcement agencies, including an investigator from the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office.
And you guys want to talk about this whole Epstein thing, but we have things going on currently like this, where these young ladies and women and minors are being trafficked and sex trafficked. And where's the uproar? This is what I don't like and I don't get. Where is the outrage? Where's the also applauding state, local, and federal law enforcement for having an operation like this and getting these scumbags off the streets and into jail and saving these women from being sex trafficked and human trafficked? We're too focused on this Epstein thing and what happened already, which, hey, look, it's a tragedy what happened to those victims. But at the same time, you can acknowledge that things are going on nowadays. And why don't we care about that? Why isn't social media blowing up about stuff like this? Why aren't people talking about it on mainstream media? Because they don't care. They just want the juicy things. They just want, oh, Epstein files means that there's celebrities involved, and I want to see if Jay-Z's in there, or if I want to see if Beyonce's in there. Oh, I want to know what's going on with the Clintons, what's going on with Trump. but they don't care about the actual victims that are in your own state and in your own local communities. They don't care. They're not in an uproar, nothing. And this is why I cover things like this, because people need to know this is going on in our state, in our city, in our country. Things like this is going on. And it's not a coincidence that the Trump administration, once Trump became president, you have been seeing operation after operation saving these young women and minors. These little girls and young women and older women are being saved by this human trafficking and sex trafficking. But we don't hear it. We need to step up, people.
Office identified several residential brothels in the city of Walnut, which resulted in the arrest of 6 traffickers.
We have traffickers that are putting barely teenage girls out on the streets of Los Angeles to be victimized repeatedly over and over again.
Crazy.
And these children did not come from one place. They came from Chicago, from Oklahoma, from Missouri, tribal lands in the Muskogee Creek Nation, and from communities right here in the state of California.
Now, authorities didn't just target suspected traffickers, but they also arrested hundreds of sex buyers, also known as Johns, during this crackdown. LA County District.
Yes, you also need to arrest them as well. They're also the problem, clearly. Everyone involved, you got to hold them accountable.
District Attorney Nathan Hochman said that they're focusing on sex buyers, and he said when the case comes to the DA's office, they will go after them as felony prosecutions, not misdemeanors.
And people are in an uproar with Diddy. Oh, what about Diddy? Diddy had consensual sex with Cassie and others because they all admitted that it was consensual. He's a freak. Yes. Is he evil? You can debate that. Freaky as hell. Yeah. But something like this, no one cares about. I don't hear anybody talking about stuff like this. Very few people are talking about this on social media. You don't hear this in the mainstream media unless it's, of course, Fox and at least ABC right here covered it. But I think this is the local news, ABC in LA. At least they covered it. But you don't see CNN talking about this. They are obsessed with the Epstein files. They're upset with the Diddy case. They don't talk about this. Is huge. 600 people. Anytime you have an operation, if federal, state, local have an operation and you arrest you're arresting 600 people, and it's for human trafficking. This is a big case that should be talked about, and people should be aware that this is going on. Little girls are getting taken and then sex trafficked like this. This is horrible.
A large part of the operation taking place right here in LA County, considered a hotbed for human trafficking.
Among the victims, teenagers from all over the country, some as young as 13. And Eyewitness News reporter Sid Garcia is live in downtown LA with all the details. Sid.
It's the 12th year in a row that this task force has been going after human traffickers. And in this latest one that happened about a week and a half ago, they made hundreds of arrests.
Human trafficking and child exploitation are devastating crimes.
The last week of January, local, state, and federal law enforcement teams went out to pick up solicitors and providers of young girls and boys involved in sex trafficking. They call it Operation Reclaim and Rebuild. Statewide, more than 600 arrests were made. 156 adults and 14 children were rescued from the streets of LA and up and down the state. The task force also confiscated several weapons in their week-long sting. Young girls and boys given a second chance to reclaim and rebuild their lives.
Survivors need care. They need time. They need a chance to rebuild their lives. And our partnerships with these organizations are what allows those individuals to reclaim their lives and rebuild their lives.
There's a number of service organizations the deputy chief alluded to that help the victims of human trafficking start over.
And this is what our money, our taxpaying dollars should be going to. Should be going to helping law enforcement to arrest these scumbags. It should be going to the victims like this who will need help afterwards. They're going to need help. And this is where our taxpaying dollars should go to, not to illegal immigrants, not to the waste, fraud, and abuse that we've seen our tax dollars go to. And then we clearly see what happened in Minnesota with the child leering center, where that state alone has about 9 billion in tax fraud. So this is why we need our tax dollars appropriately sent to the right areas, and there should be no fraud in the tax dollars. This is where it should be going to. I guarantee you, I would say a very high percentage, 95%, I would say at least, of US citizens would be like, oh, yeah, definitely our tax dollars should go to victims of human trafficking and sex trafficking, especially when you're talking about minors. This is just, it's disturbing that we as a society, we care about the celebrities getting in trouble because it's good to talk about, it's good gossip. But when it comes to real people, our everyday average people that are suffering because they are sex trafficked and they're human trafficked and they're drugged up and they have nowhere to go, nowhere to run, nowhere to turn to, this is something that we should be talking about. And I know mainstream media is not talking about this because this is a direct reflect of how the Trump administration said, we're going to crack down on this. We're no longer going to allow these animals to do this to our United States citizens and just people that are here in general. Make sure you leave a comment below. I'm Terrence Manning. This is My Thoughts Uncut. I appreciate you guys for watching. Hit the like button as well. Subscribe to the channel. Peace. See you next time.